The city was drenched in rain that night, its streets shimmering beneath the orange glow of street lamps. Cars rushed by, splashing water onto the sidewalks, while most people hurried to the warmth of their homes. But Armin, a young CEO of a growing tech firm, walked slowly beneath his umbrella. He wasn't in a rush. For all his success, the loneliness that followed him home every night made time feel heavier, emptier. As he turned the corner near a closed bakery, something caught his eye, a small figure curled up on the steps. It was a girl, no older than her early 20s, shivering as rain soaked through her thin clothes. Her arms hugged her knees tightly, as though that could shield her from the cold. Armin paused. He'd seen beggars before, but something about this girl made his chest tighten. Her face, though smeared with rain and dirt, carried a quiet dignity. Her eyes, half hidden beneath strands of wet hair, were hauntingly beautiful but filled with exhaustion, like someone who had carried too much pain for too long. "Excuse me," Armin said softly, stepping closer. The girl lifted her head slowly. She looked startled, almost fearful, as though human kindness was foreign to her. "Do you have anywhere to go tonight?" he asked gently. She shook her head. Her voice came out weak, almost a whisper. "No, I'm used to it." The words cut through him like a blade. Used to it. Used to sleeping in the rain. Used to being invisible. Used to suffering. Armin's grip on his umbrella tightened. He could have walked away. Most people would have. But his conscience wouldn't allow it. "You'll get sick out here," he said after a pause. "Come with me. At least for tonight." Her brows furrowed. She studied him with suspicion, like a wounded animal unsure whether to trust an outstretched hand. "Why?" she asked, her voice trembling. Armin crouched slightly so he wouldn't tower over her. "Because no one deserves to be out here alone like this. I promise, you're safe with me." Something in his tone, calm, respectful, sincere, broke through her wall of fear. Slowly, hesitantly, she placed her hand in his. Her fingers were ice cold. Without another word, Armin helped her stand and held the umbrella over her as they walked together through the storm. When they reached his penthouse, she froze at the door. The grandeur of the building intimidated her. The marble floors, the doorman greeting Armin with respect, the warm lighting spilling into the lobby. She looked down at her ragged clothes, her muddy shoes. "I can't go in there," she whispered. Armin smiled reassuringly. "Yes, you can. Don't worry about anything." He led her up to his apartment. Inside, the contrast was stark. The warmth of polished wooden floors, modern furniture, and the faint scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. She stood awkwardly at the entrance, unsure if she should even step inside. "Sit," Armin said gently, pointing to the couch. "I'll bring you something warm." She obeyed, sitting stiffly as though afraid she might ruin the expensive fabric. When Armin returned, he carried a tray, steaming soup, bread, and a cup of tea. He placed it in front of her. Her eyes widened at the sight, but she didn't touch the food immediately. Instead, she glanced at him, cautious. "It's for you," Armin encouraged with a soft smile. Only then did she pick up the spoon. She ate slowly at first, as if testing whether it was real, then faster, each bite revealing just how long she had gone without proper food. Armin sat across from her, not saying much, just watching quietly. There was something graceful even in the way she ate, something that didn't fit the image of a street beggar. When she finished, she placed the spoon down carefully, almost formally. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice still fragile but sincere. "You're welcome. You can rest here tonight. I'll get some fresh clothes for you." Her eyes flickered with gratitude and fear. "Why are you helping me? People usually—" She trailed off, unable to finish. "Usually look away," Armin said softly. I know. He leaned back, his gaze steady. But maybe I don't want to be like everyone else. For a long moment, silence filled the room. The sound of rain pattering against the windows was the only thing between them. Finally, she spoke again, so quietly he almost didn't hear. My name is Amara. Armin smiled. Nice to meet you, Amara. I'm Armin. That night, he set up the guest room for her, placing a soft blanket on the bed. Amara hesitated at the doorway, almost overwhelmed by the comfort. She looked at him, her eyes glistening as though she might cry. I don't remember the last time someone cared. Then maybe it's time someone did, Armin replied gently. She turned her face away quickly, but not before he noticed the tears slipping down her cheeks. Over the next few days, a quiet rhythm settled between them. Armin would go to work in the morning, but in the evenings, he and Amara would talk. She avoided questions about her past, yet he noticed things that puzzled him. Her elegant posture, the way she spoke with refinement, the ease with which she discussed books and art. She didn't sound like someone who had grown up on the streets. And though she wore borrowed clothes and carried sadness in her eyes, there was a natural grace about her, the kind that no hardship could erase. Armin tried to ignore it, but every time she smiled, however faintly, his heart stirred. He found himself lingering longer at home, listening to her soft laughter when she teased him, noticing how she would stare out the window as if searching for something far beyond the city lights. One evening, as they sat drinking tea, Amara asked, "Why do you live alone in such a big place?" Armin looked down at his cup. Success doesn't always mean happiness. Sometimes it just makes the emptiness bigger. Her eyes softened. For the first time, she reached across the table and touched his hand gently. Then maybe you weren't meant to be alone. The touch was brief, but it left Armin's heart racing. He didn't know who she really was or why she had ended up on that rainy street corner, but he knew one thing for certain. He was falling for her. And deep down, he sensed that Amara carried a secret, one that could change everything. The morning was quiet, the kind of stillness that feels fragile, like a moment that could shatter at any second. Armin had just finished dressing for an important investor meeting when he heard it. The distant sound of engines, too many of them for an ordinary visit. He walked to the window, confused. Below, a fleet of luxury black cars pulled up in front of his building. Their tinted windows reflected the gray sky, and the sudden appearance of uniformed bodyguards stepping out made the scene feel like something out of a movie. Armin frowned. Who on earth were they looking for? Before he could even process, the elevator dinged. The doors opened, and a man in his 60s, distinguished, commanding, dressed in an immaculate tailored suit, rushed down the hallway with two guards at his side. His face was pale, but his eyes burned with desperation. And then Armin realized, he wasn't here for him. The man's eyes fixed on her. Amara, who had been sitting quietly on the couch with a book in her lap, froze. The book slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a dull thud. Amara. The man's voice cracked as he hurried forward. My daughter. The world seemed to tilt in that instant. Armin blinked, his mind struggling to process. Daughter. Amara rose slowly, trembling. Father. The older man pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as though he'd never let go again. His voice broke with relief. I thought I lost you forever. Where have you been? Why would you disappear like that? Armin stood frozen at the edge of the room, his chest tight. Daughter. His gaze darted between them, stunned. The girl he thought was a homeless beggar, was the missing daughter of one of the most powerful billionaires in the country. His heart hammered in disbelief. All the little signs made sense now. Her refined manners, her way of speaking, the knowledge she carried so effortlessly. She had never been what she seemed. Armin's thoughts raced. He felt betrayed. Did she lie to him? Was this all a cruel test, some twisted game? He turned away, not wanting to meet her eyes. But Amara pulled back from her father, her face wet with tears. She looked at Armin, her voice breaking. I didn't want you to find me like this. Her father, confused, followed her gaze. Who is he? Amara swallowed hard. The man who gave me a home when I had nothing. The only one who saw me. Her father looked at Armin with a mixture of scrutiny and suspicion. He was used to people wanting his money, using his daughter's name for influence. And who exactly are you? He demanded. Armin straightened, still stunned but steady. Just a man who couldn't walk past your daughter when she was suffering. The words hung heavy in the air. Amara stepped forward, desperation spilling from her voice. I ran away, father, because I was tired of being surrounded by people who only saw wealth, power, and your name. I wanted to know if anyone could see me for who I really am. Out there, I was invisible. No one cared. But he did. He fed me, sheltered me, respected me, without ever asking who I was. Her father's stern expression faltered, softening just slightly. He looked at Armin again, this time with less suspicion and more thoughtfulness. Still, he was protective. You're saying you chose this suffering. You lived on the streets when you had everything. Amara nodded firmly, her tears shining. I had everything, father, except freedom. Except love that wasn't bought. I needed to know the world outside our walls, and I found him. She turned to Armin, her voice trembling. I found you. Armin's throat tightened. He wanted to believe her, but part of him feared this would all vanish. That once she stepped back into her father's world of wealth, she would forget him as though he never existed. Amara, he said quietly, his voice edged with pain, you don't belong here. You have a life waiting for you. You don't need me. Her eyes widened, her heart breaking at the words. She crossed the room, standing in front of him. Don't you understand? I don't care about the wealth, the cars, the titles. None of it matters to me. What matters is you. You treated me like a person when I was nothing. I can't go back to pretending I never felt that. Her father watched the exchange, stunned. He had expected his daughter to come home immediately, to slip back into the life of privilege. But now he realized. She had changed. She had found something real, something money could never buy. Armin struggled with conflicting emotions. Part of him wanted to hold her close, to believe every word. Another part feared the gulf between their worlds was too wide. He didn't want to be the man whispered about behind her back, the poor CEO who got lucky with a billionaire's daughter. Sensing his hesitation, Amara took his hands, pressing them to her heart. You once told me success doesn't always mean happiness. You were right. I lived with all the riches anyone could dream of, but I wasn't happy. With you, I was. For the first time in my life, I was free to laugh, to cry, to just be myself. Isn't that what matters? The sincerity in her voice cracked something open inside him. He realized then, it didn't matter who her father was. What mattered was the girl who had smiled shyly at his dinner table, who had cried softly in the guest room, who had looked at him as though he wasn't invisible either. Armin exhaled, his resistance breaking. He cupped her face gently. Amara, I don't know how this will work. But if you're truly choosing me, I'll never let you go. She nodded, tears spilling freely. I already chose you. Her father, though hesitant, saw the fire in his daughter's eyes. He knew that same determination. She had inherited it from him. And while the idea of his daughter living outside the bubble of wealth frightened him, he also recognized that no amount of riches could give her the happiness she was speaking of. After a long silence, he said quietly, then I won't stand in your way. If this is the life you want, Amara, I'll trust you. Amara threw her arms around her father once more, whispering her gratitude. Then she turned back to Armin, her gaze steady, her love undeniable. And just like that, the storm that had once brought them together was nothing compared to the storm they had just survived. A CEO who had lived in loneliness, and a billionaire's daughter who had fled from a life of emptiness, had found each other in the most unexpected way. From that day forward, they walked side by side, not as a CEO and a billionaire's daughter, not as two people from different worlds, but as two hearts that had chosen each other against all odds. Because in the end, love, true love, sees past wealth, titles, and appearances. And it was that truth that bound them forever.